The music world moves fast. Want to stay up to date on the latest albums and get in-depth examinations with the artists? Check out Consequence of Sound, the podcast. Bite-sized album reviews for the music fan on the go who wants to stay in the know, and much more. Subscribe to the series on iTunes or your favorite podcast provider, and let the writers of Consequence of Sound steer you right. Check it out at consequenceofsound.net/COS podcast. Consequence Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Wherever you're listening to us from today, hit the subscribe button so you can keep up with all of these interviews. Maybe that's at iTunes, maybe that's at Spotify, or if you're listening on YouTube, you can follow along there as well. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest, Marcus King. He's got a brand new record called Carolina Confessions. Says he's got a lot to get off his chest on this one. We'll be talking about that. And one of those subjects includes suicide, who he had recently lost a friend to. We'll discuss how he wrote some of this in France. Interesting for a bit of a Southern rock record. Also working with super producer Dave Cobb and writing with the Black Keys' Dan Auerbach. It's Kyle Meredith with Marcus King.
Hey, Kyle, how you doing? It's Marcus.
I noticed that all three of your albums had been released in October as they came out. Is that a coincidence, or you just like to keep things spooky?
Well, I guess spooky's always all right, but I don't know, man. I think that may be something from the label. I guess they like to get it out towards the beginning of the last quarter, and there must be some kind of strategy there.
So 3 records now, and every single one of them with an October release. Like, that's consistency right there.
Yeah, man.
Let's hit that title first, Carolina Confessions. As you've said in other interviews, you had a lot of things to get off of your chest. It makes it a concept record, right?
Yeah, I guess in a lot of ways, yeah, it does. You know, it's a breakup record, just a different kind of breakup record. It's more of a accepting responsibility for your own actions type of a thing. And it also speaks a little on leaving home and, you know, finding yourself out there.
As you're focusing on your songwriting this time around, did you feel like you needed a concept to keep your focus, to give you a direction to go in, or is it just the way that the cards fell?
I was really happy that the concept kind of found me, and I was able to build around that. And I had been bringing in songs into the studio, and the concept kind of found me that way, because all the songs kind of tied into this grand scheme of Carolina Confessions, and it gave me a better idea or a better way to paint the picture I was trying to.
I read that you wrote a lot of did you write a lot of the songs in France, or was just some of the songwriting happened up there?
Yeah, a good few of the tunes I wrote just kind of in hotel rooms and backstage areas while we were over there doing our tour this past March, I think it was.
When you hear a lot about how sometimes location can influence a song, but I don't know. Do you have any of French or European sounds that you can hear creep into these songs at all?
Not much. I'll tell you what was really, I think, kind of unbeknownst to me, inspiring the way that I was approaching this music was give you an idea of what I was doing. I was really kind of stressed out. So that really encouraged me to write more, because that's my main way to release tension on my heart and my soul and my spirit. So I was doing this tour, and I was also learning a lot of Black Crowes music, because I was getting ready to do this tour with Chris Robinson that we did. And that's what I think really was really inspiring to me, was learning all their music, actually.
You can definitely hear some of that in there. I mean, and I think that falls in line with, Southern music too, which has a long tradition, although it's, you could say that about any basic genre, but something about Southern music, it's a really special, specific tradition that it becomes more about the story. I mean, the guitar solos and the riffs are there, but it has to be about the story as well, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's the truth, man. You got to have a story behind it.
And there are some stories on here. I'll bring up Goodbye Carolina, because I think that's one of the most heartbreaking ones we hear about. that touches on suicide.
Yeah, it does. That's been something I've written about before. It's the first time I've ever spoken about it. I think it's something that we need to be aware that's happening, and it doesn't really have a face. You know, you never really see it coming. And we had a good friend of ours that's not with us anymore, and I wrote the song from his perspective. And I feel more like he wrote it. He kind of came to me in a dream of some sort in one of my hotel rooms in France, and that's how the song came to be.
Beautiful, beautiful song. It really is.
Well, thanks a lot, man.
Would you say that there are more goodbyes than hellos on this record?
That's tough to say because I guess collectively the entire record is meant to be a bit more uplifting, but I guess it's kind of how you like to interpret it. I guess for me, you know, anything that I write, I like 100 different people to listen and have 100 different interpretations of what it could mean, or, you know, just because I say exactly what the song's about, that's just what it was for me.
Right.
It should be something different for everybody.
Must say something about the mood I've been in lately then. And we should also mention Dave Cobb. You know, everybody's a fan of Dave Cobb these days. We surely are. Did he add anything that you hadn't been able to do before?
Dave was a really great asset on this record. He came in, and he's very calm and collected with the way that he works, and he was very aware of the fact that we're a band, you know, and it's not just me and some session players. So it was very collaborative in the way of pushing everybody to really get the best parts that they could on the song that we were working on. We would start every morning or afternoon, because Dave likes to do the Brian Wilson approach, or the John Prine, however, and start about 1 p.m., 2 p.m. So we would sit down on the couch and I would write or play a song, and if he had any notes just on the basic structure of the tune, we would go over it there. We would change around the verse, or we'd say, no, this could be better for the chorus if we added this there. You know, make some really minor adjustments, and then right there the horns would come up with their lines, and everybody would kind of learn the song. Because the majority of the music, like I said, I wrote by myself, so I hadn't presented it even to the band yet. So I really went in there cold with all these tunes, and he was a really big asset in letting us act as a band once we had all of our parts. He wouldn't really step in the middle of us in our, you know, arbitration process that we usually have of anything that could be going on in the studio. He kind of let us figure things out, and then he would, you know, jump in. It was a great environment.
And I'll bring up, you know, one of those songs, I guess, that maybe you didn't bring in at the beginning was How Long, because that ended up being a co-write with Dan Auerbach, as I read. How did that come about, and how was it writing in that style with him?
That was great, man. It was really a good couple of days. It was just a writing session that came about. Dan does a lot of writing in Nashville, and he contacted, or he reached out to me and asked if I would want to come and do some writing with them. And I said, or with him, and I said, absolutely. So I flew from Phoenix, Arizona to Nashville, and we did 2 days of writing, and we were writing with Pat McLaughlin on this particular day. And we had like 4 or 5 different ideas that we left the studio with, and that one was the one that kept kind of ringing in my ear. And I flew from Nashville to Paris, and we did that whole tour of Paris. So I had all the other tunes I was working on, and I had that one still kind of ringing in my head. So we started playing it live and testing it out on that tour that we were doing. And we came back to the studio, and we focused on all the songs that we wanted to get done. And we noticed that we had a day in the studio that we didn't have really anything to work on. So at that point, I kind of said, you know, I got this tune that me and Dan and Mackie wrote. Let's give it a go.
And there it is for everybody to hear now.
Yep.
Yeah. Dude, I really do love this record, Carolina Confessions. You've done an outstanding job. And I'll also mention at the end here that we're excited to have you in town, too, because you're going to be bringing it all to the Mercury Ballroom, which is right next door to us on December 4th. Really looking forward to that, man.
Yeah, me too, brother. We can't wait.
Yeah. All right, Marcus. Thank you so much for calling in today. We'll be seeing you soon.
Thanks a lot, man. We'll see you all in Louisville.
All right. Take care.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye now.
Hey, my thanks to Marcus King for giving me the call again. The new record is called Carolina Confessions. It is out now. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening from right now. If you're checking us out on YouTube, over on Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcast from, maybe that's iTunes, you can subscribe there as well. After that, head over to wfpk.org. That's where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern, where you can also find some bonus episodes of this series. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.